All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to the BK Nothing But Nets podcast. I am your host today, Dylan, also known as Nets Press, joined with me, as always, my co-host Gary, and a very, very special guest, a man that I have not spoken to in quite some time, at least live, Brandon Scoopy Robinson. It's always a pleasure to have you on, man. Our connection's been going back now for a little over 2 years, so it's great to have you back on a show and be able to talk basketball with you. But let us know how you're doing, where we can find you, and we'll get right into things.
Of course, and if I'm not mistaken, did we bump into each other at a game this season?
We did. We saw each. What was that? Charlotte in January, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
January.
that was
A
that
lot
was that
has
was cool. I was gonna say I was I had just gotten to my seats and I'm looking across and I see you on like the baseline side. I'm like, that jacket looks way too familiar to not be him. So I shot you a quick text and luckily you saw it. But yeah, no, it was great to finally meet you in person and be able to connect in that way. So um,
likewise. We went from
hopefully I'll be in Charlotte a little bit more next season.
okay, yeah, hopefully, and we caught each other virtually, and then we met in person, so
Yep.
it was wonderful. And then I met Gary as well. I'm doing okay. Scoopy Radio is where you can find everything. Moving Scoopy.com. Check out the blog, daily stuff there, and everything in between. You guys know where to find me: Twitter, Instagram, everywhere in between.
Awesome, my man. Yeah, no, you've been doing great things. I've been keeping up as much as possible while also trying to maintain my own things. So everything that you do is always a fun read. It's always a fun listen. If you guys aren't already following him on Twitter, make sure to go follow him over there. He's also on Instagram and, like he said, Scoopy Radio. So make sure not to miss out on his content and his work as well. But let's get right into things. The NBA draft lottery was last night. Very, very disappointing for Nets fans. We were talking about it a bit backstage. You used the word business. What were your, thoughts on last night's lottery, how it fell, and are there any maybe not net specific trade ups that you see, but do you see any of those teams in the top three looking to move that pick for a name like Giannis or a Kevin Durant? What are your thoughts on how the lottery fell and what could it mean for the trade market?
Well, as far as your question about the lottery, it's a lottery, and it's New York Lotto. Hey, you never know. I think it's a situation where they're telling us it's ping pongs. They're telling us that it's random drawing. You take them at their word. As far as the picks, I think the Dallas thing is an instant reaction for people because of just the way that the Luka trade went between the Lakers and the Mavs, and then here we are. But I do know that when you look at the overall picture of teams, it's the teams that have the worst records. San Antonio was interesting to watch throughout the course of the season, but they didn't get it done. Wemby being hurt changed the trajectory. They named Stephon Castle the Rookie of the Year. Dallas, has a situation where you know Kyrie's hurt, and then they were losing at a high clip. The Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets, unfortunately, are the usual suspects as far as wins and losses. The 76ers, did not have the best season. And, I never really subscribed to the theory, if you go back to my tweets, that the Nets were going to get a top pick. I know that, in fantasy land, I even saw you post on Instagram last night that you'll never be able to use those, mock ups with those jerseys
Yep.
that had an
Yeah, the
iteration of
flag Harper and Ace
the
jerseys.
flag.
Yep.
But I never really bought into it. And the hysteria that many people did on Twitter. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I personally thought that Washington, Charlotte would likely get those picks higher up. I just never really saw it for the Nets. In answer to your question about flipping those picks, I reported a couple of weeks ago where I talked about um, uh, to paraphrase, just about the Pelicans and their movement and Giannis and or Zion Williamson. Of course, Zion did represent the Pelicans at the draft lottery in Chicago. But I stand by the reporting as it relates to the Pelicans having leverage with the Bucks and the picks and things of that sort. And with that being said, do I see any movement? It'd be interesting to see how both Dallas's pick and San Antonio's pick um, leverage into moves.
Definitely.
Ultimately, the Rockets are to believe to be one of the favorites for Kevin Durant, as I've extensively reported, as well as the San Antonio Spurs, as well as the Timberwolves, as well as the Knicks. Those are teams that have had interest. As I reported, the Washington Wizards did call the Dallas Mavericks around the week of the deadline to at least inquire about Kevin Durant, and no dice there. But
Yeah.
ultimately, the Phoenix Suns will be on calls with their GM Brian Gregory, as well as the Spurs, as well as the Mavs, trying to figure out those two dominoes, which are Kevin Durant and Giannis. Ultimately, what I will add to that equation is this: I do know that Giannis's situation with the Bucks is interesting because we went through a similar situation about 5 years ago, where I do know that the Bucks did have a meeting with Giannis, and Giannis had a list of players on a wish list that he'd like on his team, and that wish list did include at the time, and this is 2020 for context, Chris Paul, as well as James Harden, and others were on that list. And after that list was given and a conversation was had, he did resign. And then, a year later, the Bucks did win an NBA Finals in 2021 against the Phoenix Suns. So I have to wonder whether this is another leverage ploy, or is he serious about taking his talents elsewhere? I said a lot.
I wanted
No,
to.
you answered it great. I was going to say, I have a follow-up question, Gary, if you want to go with yours first. I have a follow-up question in regards to the Spurs and Pelicans offers potentially, and what the lottery meant for those. But Gary, go right
Well,
ahead.
I wanted to just jump in. You mentioned Zion. Anyone who listens to us knows I've been obsessed with the idea of getting Zion. To me, that's a path for the Nets to get out of hell. Zion they've said they're going to trade him. Dumar said they're going to trade him. He's representing the Pelicans yesterday. What's your take on Zion? Are they going to trade him? Are the Nets a possibility? And what kind of package do you think he would be moved for ultimately?
As far as Zion is concerned, I thought it was great to see him at the draft lottery representing the Pelicans in that capacity. I go back to a text that I got from one of my leak sources, which was ultimately a report. I'm multitasking when I'm talking to you, but ultimately in that conversation that I was having with them, they shared with me that not only was Zion going to meet with the Pelicans brain trust, but that both he and Joe Dumars would have a face-to-face meeting and discuss the future. And so the fact that he represented the Pelicans at the draft lottery in Chicago, I think is good. And I know that there have been questions about his conditioning, as it's been for a long time, but I want to put this out there immediately. Zion Williamson, when healthy, is a juggernaut, is a behemoth of a star, and was on a Pelicans team that really underperformed last year. I can say this now. I had conversation with David Griffin some months ago just about this team, and I had intimated to him that I had always looked at this team as being what the Oklahoma City Thunder had ultimately became. And he gave his thoughts on it. I'll keep that there. I don't want to start headlines, but what I will say is that it was disappointing to see what the outcome was for that team, with CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, as well as Zion Williamson, as well as Jose Alvarado at large. And so, I feel like the Nets as a team, yeah, it'd be great to have him, but players have to want to go there. And I think that the conversations that I've had with players specifically is really just about how stars will be treated, because stars watch. And I think it's going to take some time. I think sometimes Nets fans are disillusioned by front office, what front office can do, and the actuality of what the results will be. I saw that firsthand, specifically with Cam Johnson, where there was this expectation that the Nets were going to trade him. And from everybody that I spoke with going into the deadline, there was nothing of an offer that made sense logistically. And, I respect Brian Lewis quite a bit. I'll never detract him or say anything bad. But I know that when that report came out, I know that I was hearing, that Zion definitely has a residence, or excuse me, I I did some research, and I know for specifically that Giannis Antetokounmpo has a residence in New York. He does a lot of business there and is very in tune with the Greek community there. But I also feel like when people saw him pushing a carriage and that became a video online, there's this preconceived notion, oh my God, Zion is coming to New York, and it doesn't work like that. Like, these guys have lives outside of basketball. And, I think that the Nets definitely are a team that is on the come up, and that's okay. But I also think they're in a very similar situation that the Knicks were in when players didn't want to come to Manhattan to play for various reasons. And years later, you see the results of that now. I think it takes time. And so I think that I kind of feel like Nets fans are angry because their parents didn't take them to Chuck E. Cheese for their birthday. Similarly to how Knicks fans were disappointed when they didn't get Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, or Zion Williamson via draft. I just think there's a parallel there.
Definitely. And the follow-up question that I wanted to add, because I know that you mentioned, teams like Dallas, San Antonio, New Orleans is now potential suitors for a guy like Giannis based on their draft lottery results. With San Antonio bumping up to 2, does that put them now as the favorite over a team like the Pelicans who own Milwaukee's picks while also having a top 7 pick? Or do you still think the Pelicans have the best offer to give for a guy like Giannis currently?
So if you go back to my reporting always stated that if deals fall through, the Pelicans are monitoring the situation and they're a team that could be in the running to make that happen. I want to put that out there and punctuate that because there were people who thought that I was saying Giannis is going to the Pelicans. And there's 2 ways to slice and dice that. One, if conversations don't go the way teams want them to go, I think there's a situation where the Pelicans can either swoop in and offer something and or can be a facilitator as a 3rd or 4th team in a trade. So the Pelicans will definitely, in my research and conversations, they'll definitely be a team that will be a conversational piece and moving what they're trying to move while also potentially helping a team facilitate a trade. But I also do know that things happen. Like, so for example, I know that in the summertime last year with Brandon Ingram wanted out he did not want to come back to New Orleans without a new deal. And they tabled the conversation, but then he got traded to Toronto. I know that prior to DeMar DeRozan signing with Sacramento, I know that Sacramento was having conversations with the Pelicans about a potential deal. I know that Miami was interested in Brandon Ingram. I know that there were a lot of teams there, but sometimes those conversations go dead. And then Toronto, for example, enters the chat. So you use that model and apply it to Giannis or Kevin Durant. It could be a situation where teams could, in the 23rd hour, agree on something, and then in the 24th hour, they decide they don't like it and then go in a completely different direction. And then there swoops the Pelicans and a situation can happen. So I want to put that out there because I think that the 2 dominoes that have to take place, the top 2 dominoes in both free agency, the draft, and just trade season is Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, I think San Antonio is going to be very active. If you go back to, I think I saw you in January, and maybe a couple of days later, I had reported that De'Aaron Fox wanted to go to the Spurs. And then the deadline, you saw it.
Yep.
San Antonio is very determined to create the next dynasty, and Giannis and or Kevin Durant are part of that process on their wish list. But the Houston Rockets also have interest in Kevin Durant, and they pretty much have the assets to make that happen. So I think this situation with Kevin Durant is very similar actually to Chris Paul in 2020 when he wanted out of Oklahoma, a young team at the time, and he found his way to Phoenix. Sam Presti and Chris Paul and his representation worked hand in hand to try to find something that was mutually beneficial. And you saw that happen. And I think a similar situation for Durant will likely happen. But I also know that Phoenix is looking to find a way to appease him. And, the head coaching search, one of the guys that is of interest is Royal Ivey, someone who is Kevin Durant's best friend.
Yeah.
Actually, someone who recruited KD to come to the University of Texas. And KD was in his wedding and is actually Royal Ivey's child's godfather. Royal Ivey also an assistant coach with the Nets when KD was there, but Ime Udoka also has a relationship with KD. He was an assistant there. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think that's why since January I've offered in my reporting, which you can find at scoopb.com, my Scoopy blog, all the different scenarios. Prior to Kyrie Irving hurting or tearing his ACL, there was movement there. I also know that Nico Harrison did contact the Phoenix Suns about the availability of Kevin Durant as well. So there are a lot of teams making a lot of offers. And if you go back to my reporting in June, Dallas was a player. And the Wolves put out in June of last year that the Houston Rockets were a player. Dallas is and was a player in that situation as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, I remember towards the deadline, towards the end of it, teams like Minnesota and Dallas were kind of those two last second mentions on Kevin Durant. So the market for him.
Warriors were as well, and the Washington Wizards also contacted the Phoenix Suns as well.
Yeah, I mean, the market for him is going to be very large, which is kind of surprising coming for a guy who is going to be 37 years old by next season. So, to see the market still be so large for a guy of his age is definitely impressive. But you'd kind of have to think Houston's the front runner in that situation, right? With Ime Udoka there, with, the core pieces of Amen Thompson and Sengun still there, and then also owning Phoenix's draft capital currently. You'd have to think that's the front runner, right? And
Fred VanVleet tabling an extension on his extension, I think until June 29th. Either that's a trade piece or they're trying to see what they'd have to get. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces there as well. So I think everybody's playing chess to try to make sure that they have all of their ducks in a row in the event that Kevin Durant is made available and he goes to the team of his choosing.
Definitely. And one last thing about the Pelican Spurs, right? Because this is a topic that's become very fascinating amongst, the draft, the offseason, the trade market. Would it almost be more beneficial, personally to you, that the Pelicans hold on to Zion and keep the Bucks picks? Because you mentioned that they are on a similar trajectory if they were to continue the route that they're on to Oklahoma City, right? And ultimately, in a world where Milwaukee does trade Giannis, right? Owning those picks over the 3 of the next 4 years could be the jump start to their retooling age that they're kind of in amongst Zion and Trey Murphy. With DeJounte having a torn Achilles, CJ McCollum on an expiring deal, those are two guys that could open up a ton of cap space for them. Not to mention those picks from Milwaukee to retool around Zion and Trey. Do you think it would be beneficial for them to try and be one of those last-second sneak-in teams for Giannis, or to just hold the picks and stay the course?
Logistically, what you offer does make sense only because you then stockpile picks and actually be the modern-day Oklahoma City, so to speak. And I think that's also the thing that makes OKC dangerous now. The fact that they still have a stockpile of picks for the future while also building on the now. It actually reminds me so much of the Thunder team in 2012 that went to the finals and ultimately lose Harden. To go back to your question about the Pelicans, however, it would make sense because Zion sells tickets both locally and on the road, and I think it would make sense. But if you get the chance to bring in a Giannis or a KD like, you jump on it. I just think for me, couple things. I think Giannis is in the point of his career where he's a magnet. Wherever he goes, people are going to follow. I think there's this notion that Giannis just wants to go to a LA or New York, a Chicago, and more, just because he's played in Milwaukee. And I think when you're good, the game comes to you. Like, this is like LeBron his second time around in Cleveland. Like, people weren't checking for Cleveland. They ended up calling Cleveland the land. They made Cleveland cool.
Yeah.
People came to LeBron. I think Giannis is at that point professionally where he is the epitome of LeBron's second stint in Cleveland, where he's a magnet, and anywhere he goes, people will follow. It's been long. I had a conversation today with someone, who, basically shared with me that, it's the worst kept secret that, Giannis and Jay Kidd have always wanted to reunite in Dallas. And so, there's conversations about, what that would look like. I don't know about you, and I don't know if you were paying attention to body language during the draft lottery. Cooper Flag looked disinterested playing in Dallas.
Yes, very much so.
We commented on that, yeah. I want to just follow up with you. This is 2 years in a row now that a play-in team got the number one pick in the draft. Obviously, this year the prize was much bigger, right? Or at least people envision it that way. Is this going to change the way people think of tanking? I mean, we've seen a lot of teams tank this year. Teams were investigated for tanking. And then you see, Utah get the 5th pick and Dallas get 1 and San Antonio get 2. Atlanta got 1 last year. Is this going to change, maybe people change the way they think about tanking during the season?
Yeah, only because I think social media plays a big part in it. And the NBA is used to creating storylines and their own narratives. And you've got people who have large followings on social media that can create what they want people to believe. So I think if you think people weren't having those kind of conversations in 1984 when Patrick Ewing was drafted, you're crazy. If you don't think that people were having that conversation when Derrick Rose was picked by the Chicago Bulls, you're crazy. If you think that people weren't having those kind of conversations in 2003 when the Cavs got the first pick and they ended up drafting Akron, Ohio's own LeBron James, you're crazy. The social media aspect and 24-hour news coverage has changed that. This is not a word, but I'm going to make it one. We have CNNized basketball.
I definitely agree.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, even if you look at some of the first overall picks over the past couple of years, I'm going to go blank on some of the years, but Zion to the Pelicans the year after Anthony Davis gets traded. Luka getting traded to Los Angeles. The Mavs get the number 1 pick this year. Chris Paul leaves the Pelicans. They get the first overall pick the following year. There's time after time where you're trading your superstar lands you the first overall pick. And that's kind of what's bringing up the question of, is this really rigged, right? LeBron talked about it just 2 months ago about how, he kind of had some questions and thinks that there could be some rigging involved with certain players going to certain places, him being one of them to Cleveland, Derrick Rose going to Chicago, like you mentioned. Is this something that the NBA, and again, this is coming from fan perspective, fan frustration, whatever you want to call it, but do you think at some point in time the NBA needs to kind of recalculate how they utilize the lottery? Because there's so many franchises in the NBA that deserve to be in a position where they can finally get themselves out of hell, and it seems to continue to go to the same teams, or at least teams in the same position to accelerate what they're doing currently, rather than building up the smaller franchises and trying to give them their route to success.
I have eyes and ears on me, so I'll be mindful of what I say. But what I will say is this. This is not like we're dealing with people breaking the law. The only difference is the NBA is the cops, the judge, and the jury. So if you're looking at it from a fan perspective of what they should change, you can't tell them how to manage their own shit. It's their own shit.
Definitely.
And those who own the gold make the rules. And so I feel like while your question is valid, I think we have the same kind of arguments about the slam dunk contest.
Yeah.
I think we have been spoiled as consumers of sports and been spoiled to see Iverson crossovers, Michael Jordan winning multiple slam dunk contests, Dominique Wilkins winning slam dunk contests. In our lifetime, we saw Shaq leave Orlando and go to LA and win multiple championships, and Luka do something similar via trade. We've seen LeBron James leave Cleveland, go to Miami, go back to Cleveland, and find his way to Los Angeles. We've seen Michael Jordan leave basketball, play for the Wizards, own the Hornets, and which became the Bobcats, which became the Hornets, and now doing TV on the NBA on NBC. And I think we've seen it all. And because we've seen it all, and because we have social media, and because we have CNNized the NBA, we are wanting more. I think we have an insatiable palette at our fingertip versus we just watched cable TV and we saw the games and we went about our business and talked about it at the water cooler in school. So these are constant things that are being discussed. And again, those who own the gold make the rules. And the more we talk about it, the more people are going to watch. And that's what they want. This is literally the theme song for Lamb Chop in real time. This is the song that never ends. And the more we talk about it, it goes on and on, my friends. That's what they want.
Definitely.
They solved the viewership problem by trading Luka to Los Angeles. It was discussed that the reason why viewership was down was because of the election, because of the WNBA championship, because of the World Series. And then they took that and spun it, and Luka got traded. And now we're talking about the new TV deal and everything else. We've CNNized it.
Yep. Or as you used to reference WWE, it right? You've scripted it. The NBA is the new WWE from.
So I want to clarify that because I actually got a phone call about that. I said less, but I said, oh yeah, I didn't have any black SUVs coming in front of my house. But what I will say is that when I was on network television, I did get a call from a producer who wanted to know if the NBA wanted to know whether I was saying the league was fake. And my rebuttal was that, no, I'm not saying it's fake, but what I am saying is that storylines, people on the microphones all day is more paid attention to than the actual product on the wrestling mat or on the floor.
That makes sense.
Remember reading something years ago that said that people spent more time on the microphone than they did wrestling.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think it's fake, but I think that the storylines, social media, and the social constructs of all of those things are just as important and sometimes more important in the minds of the fans than the actual game and product that is on the floor.
Definitely. And I know that you're on a limited time frame here, and you can, by all means, cut us off whenever you have to jump off. But
I got some more time for you.
Sounds good, my man. One of the things that I wanted to get into, because we've already been depressed as it is as Nets fans with what happened last night, let's try and talk about some things that may have a positive on draft night, which is Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton. There's been rumors left and right about Nick Claxton now being the most favorable guy being traded. The Los Angeles Lakers have been pinned to him. There's some question marks about Austin Reeves and what's going to happen with him in Los Angeles. Do you think whether that be Cam Johnson or Nick Claxton, do one of these guys get used in a trade to move up in draft night? I've already been pinning teams like San Antonio at 14, OKC at 15, Orlando at 16, Minnesota at 17 as potential suitors for a guy like Johnson. Do you see Johnson being the guy that could be moved up in draft night to acquire an additional pick?
Everything that I've gotten about Cam Johnson on the Nets side has been that they're not just going to give him away for anything. Yeah. And so they're holding on to him. The explanation that was given to me is that they do see him as a building piece, but I wonder what that's going to look like finished product wise. I know that any iteration of Memphis was the conversation there, but Memphis didn't have enough. San Antonio didn't have enough, and then seemingly San Antonio moved on. As far as Oklahoma, I do know that Oklahoma had their eyes on him, and so again, based upon their picks and their war chest of assets that they have, I feel like if Oklahoma did come correct, I think it's a conversation. If the Nets are still interested in the whole Giannis thing, those are conversations that you have. I do know that not only, the Nets having interest in building around Cam Johnson long term, I also know that D'Angelo Russell is someone that they legitimately want to keep around because of the familiarity and the relationship that he has with the fan base. Why are you guys laughing at me?
I'm a huge D'Angelo Russell fan. I love D'Lo, like from the 18 and 19 teams. What function does he have on a rebuilding Nets team? Like, what? I mean,
It's funny because we've been having this topic now for about a month and a half.
D'Angelo told me himself that he likes being here. He's sorry he had to leave, and he wants to be here. And from everyone that I know on the net side, the sentiment is mutual.
So, like, I'm not asking you to read a crystal ball, but if you had to guess, you would guess that D'Lo is on the Nets again next year from kind of both sides of that.
If you ask me today, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of out there, right? That when he came back, there was a lot of, ushy gushy. I missed you guys. This is a great reunion. Something that seems to happen every single time the Nets bring back a player from previous years. But what does that offer look like? Is this a 1-year vet, minimum? Is this a 2-year team option deal? How do you think that works for D'Lo in Brooklyn this offseason?
I think 2 years would make plausible sense because it gives you the opportunity to, again, analyze who people are and why. But the whole Giannis thing, I didn't totally see, but the jury is still out. So if that doesn't happen, what's your plan B?
Yeah.
To me, that makes sense, a cap-friendly sense, while you also hopeful to have a healthy Cam Thomas and other people there. You hear things about Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson, like you say. The Nets aren't just giving Clax away. That was the same thing that was being said to me about Cam Johnson. It was the same thing that was being said about Nicholas Claxton as well. The Lakers need a center.
Yep.
I need $1 million.
We all could, right? We could all use $1 million. I mean, listen, I'd be cool with 10,000 at this point in time, but yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense, and that's what I kind of wanted to move into next after Gary's question, because I see Gary's got a follow up as well. I don't want to cut off him too much.
Real quick, so from your instinct, Sean Marks said last year that this was a 1-year rebuild. I guess that was the rebuild year. Is he sticking to that? Do you think the Nets are going to try to compete, try to make a play in this year? Is that like is that the direction that you seem to think that they're going in, or is it another?
The prerequisites of keeping your job is winning, so I would hope so.
It's fair, yeah.
For Nets fans' sakes, and I think we can kind of all agree on this. Outside of Scoop, because of course you have to be as professional as possible, but we would all love another losing season to see Sean Marks fired. But hey, I'll be the one to say it.
We'll say it. We're not going to say
But and again, I know that this is time sensitive, so I want to. I know that you got to get going at some point, but I wanted to talk about specifically Nick Claxton and the Lakers, because there has been a ton of conversation about Austin Reeves' potential off-season conversations with the Lakers and whether or not he's going to want to be there or not, if they're going to want to deal him or not. If there is a world where Claxton and Reeves do become available, is that the inevitable trade that you see happening between one another?
You got guards. For what?
Well, I mean, so let me put it in perspective, right? D'Lo as a free agent, right? Who's the backup point guard to him, right? Do you use D'Lo as the backup point guard now moving forward?
See, I look at Austin Reeves as a starting point guard in the future.
That's how I see him, and that's why I think, do you have that question of whether or not?
So I take that and raise you this: why would you bring two guys together on a roster where, in my opinion, their style of play clashed elsewhere? Like that's like you getting in trouble in school with the bully, and then your parents take you out of the school and you go to another school, and then that bully decides to transfer to the school you're at.
Yep.
And you're doing the same thing again. It just doesn't make sense.
My personal standpoint on it is just simply, well, one, I'm one of the people that doesn't want to see D'Lo back. So it's more so the expectation that if you were to be in a position to replace D'Lo with an Austin Reeves, do you do it? And in my mind, you go with the younger option on the cheaper deal. But I mean, from what you're saying, it kind of sounds like D'Lo is the option here.
That's everything that I'm getting from my intel, that the Nets and D'Lo are
in like a mutual agreement. Yeah.
That's what I
that makes sense. Final question, because I don't want to take up too much time. But the Nets have cap space. They're the only team with cap space. But the limitations on the free agents this offseason is very, very slim. Does this put Brooklyn in a position to pursue a player along the names of Jonathan Kuminga? I think this is kind of the biggest young free agent that's out there at this moment in time. There's no guarantees he goes back. There's no guarantees Golden State matches. Josh Giddey has already been rumored to most likely be going back to Chicago. Does that leave him as that plan B option if you miss out on guys like Giannis?
I think he fit. I think he definitely would be a league leader in scoring if he went to Brooklyn.
Wow. So you have that high of an expectation on his ceiling still?
I do. I spent quite a significant amount of time with both he and James Wiseman, and when they were both Warriors, right? Wiseman and Kuminga were both on that 22 championship team. And I just was I was in the back during the finals and was just watching them play soccer with a soccer ball in the back. And I just said to them, y'all are soaking so much game being under all of these eventual Hall of Famers. At the time, Clay was still on that team, and Draymond, of course, and Steph Curry, and Steve Kerr was, the coach. And they were like, yeah, like just young guys winning rings and then taking that knowledge and going elsewhere. And when I look at Kuminga, I think he's going to be in a position in the future to do well. Like that Warriors team is going to become the modern day San Antonio Spurs and sending out other people. You see that with Kenny Atkinson, former Nets coach in Cleveland, and more. And I think Kuminga, has been frustrated at times with his playing time. And, you're sharing minutes with legends, and, you want to go out there and play. And so do I think the Nets or another young team like that could benefit? Yeah. I actually think Kuminga could be in a situation similar to what Tracy McGrady was in when he left Toronto and went to Orlando.
Wow.
And be successful.
I mean, that's high praise, because Kuminga hasn't really lived up to the hype that many have kind of put on him, right? Especially with the limitations on his role in Golden State.
It's a guard-oriented team.
Yeah.
I remember spending time with Kevon Looney in LA over this past summer, and he told me, it's out there in the interview we did. I wrote it, and he was like, I want to extend my range, as a 3-point shooter, and do this and do that and stay healthy. And being in that Warriors system, you got to shoot a high volume of threes. You can't be a traditional post up. However, the Warriors in the 22 finals utilized his services as a 4-man, 5-man, and that took time away from Kuminga, if I'm not mistaken, as well as Wiseman, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. That Warriors team is not predicated upon 4s and 5s. So, yeah, it's high praise, but you let him out, let him loose, and
he does some
damage. It's like letting your 18-year-old go away to college.
Yep. He's going to do damage, that's for sure. Listen, final question on the Kuminga topic. What is the price that it'll likely take to pry Kuminga away from Golden State? Is it a price range or is it a sign and trade? What do you think could be the expectation on a annual salary for him this offseason?
Math wasn't my best subject in school. I was more of a history and an English guy.
That's me as well.
There you go. So I'm going to say I would think price, only because you hope that if you're going to at least be annoyed with playing time, you make the match.
Yeah.
So at least if you're going to get paid to be aggravated, do so. Get a team that'll pay it. If they match it, cool. If they don't, then Tracy McGrady Part 2 and add a team of your choice.
Hey, listen, if that's the praise that you're giving him and the amount of time that you've spent around basketball, then shit, I want to go after Kuminga this offseason. That's how I'm feeling now. So I want to leave it to Gary. Do you have any other follow-up questions that you want to give for Scoop before he has to head out?
No, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. if you can, just before you leave, the Nets roster, are they gonna make a move? Are they gonna sign a big free agent, or is it gonna look like they have now with a bunch of young players? Are they gonna, with a bunch
somewhere in the middle, if you ask me today.
Very interesting. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Scoopy Robinson, I appreciate you for joining as always. Gary and I are going to stay live for a little bit longer to discuss the draft lottery some more and the offseason. But Scoop, I appreciate you for joining, man. Hopefully we can get you back on at some point during the offseason as well, because I know once the season comes around, it's a busy schedule for you. But make sure to follow him on Twitter, Instagram. Make sure to go check out his blog, his radio show. Scoop, if you want to plug those in real quickly before you head out as well, feel free.
Scoopy TV on YouTube, and check out Scoopy.com and check out the blog there. Twitter and Instagram at Scoopy. That's where you can check out everything that I have going on. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Of course, man. We appreciate you for being you too, man. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys soon.
Later, brother.
All right.
Always a pleasure to have him on, man. He is one of the most down-to-earth, coolest dudes that I've been able to connect with, at least within the NBA.
I like how he was floating around the idea of the Big Lotto. I didn't want to put it in his mouth because of his connections, right? But he was dancing with a certain conspiracy theory.
Yes. Listen, I've always said it. He's a wizard with words. He's very good at being able to paint a picture, but dance around it to make sure it doesn't look like the full picture. But it's always great to have him on. Now it's time to get back to our rage fest after yesterday's failure of a draft lottery for Brooklyn. The Nets are picking at 8. This is disgusting. We really haven't. I mean, for me personally, yesterday I kind of shut down after that happened. The camera was off. I was minimal talking. I had no desire to be there anymore. But after a night to kind of settle and figure this out, this sucks. Like there's no other word to describe it, right? I thought we were going as low as 7. That was my prediction when we, before the lottery started, you and I, when we were talking. You were expecting 2. I mean,
I really was. I really was. I had Dylan Harper in my head since a year ago.
I mean, the interesting part about San Antonio landing 2 is now whether or not they trust Castle over Harper, or if they draft Harper and add Castle in the trade for Giannis.
Who do you think has more value? Harper would have 1 extra year on his deal, obviously, because
I think Harper has more value, but I also think Harper and Wemby is a better duo long-term than Castle and Wemby. Castle has that star potential, but Harper has that like all-star floor. Like he genuinely should have no reason not to be an all-star. So if I'm San Antonio, I'm packaging up Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, Stephon Castle, and 5 first-round picks. I don't give a shit what the picks are. I'm sending them out, because if you can build a roster alongside De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, Giannis, and Wemby, not to mention when the time comes where Fox, financially becomes an issue, that puts you in a position where you could move Fox to fill out the rest of the roster around Harper once he's hitting his, young prime, Giannis when he's hitting the end of his prime, and Wemby when he's hitting his actual prime. Like, you still have ways to construct that roster for years to come if you get Dylan Harper. So to me, I think the best bet for them is to select at 2 and work around Giannis after. But that's just my opinion. I don't want to talk about other teams too much because we've got enough shit to talk about, right?
It was. I couldn't even watch the games yesterday. I watched like 5 minutes of the next game. I watched a little bit of the Minnesota.
It was depressing.
I
had my
really
friend
felt
over
like
who
a
was
family member was shot. Like, this is terrible.
I had one of my best friends over yesterday to watch the lottery. He's a diehard Boston fanatic for everything, so we clash all the time. I mean, between the Nets getting again, sorry for language, but the Nets getting fucked, because that's what just happened, and Tatum likely tearing his Achilles. That was like, I mean, that was like one of the worst hangouts ever. We just sat here quiet. There was no other words to put how poor the NBA was yesterday in terms of a rigged lottery, superstars getting hurt. Like, it was a tough day for basketball fans, man. And it makes it worse for us knowing that the Knicks are now going to advance. So
I thought San Antonio was going to get number 1. They got number 2. And
Dallas,
I knew
See, the problem is, and we talked about this backstage. I understand teams jumping up in the lottery, but when you look at if you look at Tankathon, you can see teams' records, right? Dallas was 39-43. Dallas was 34-48. Portland was 36-46. They were projected 10. Why didn't they get bumped up into the top 3? Because they're not marketable, because it's not rigged for them. That's the problem.
They don't have a star. They don't have, it's a
Dallas
small market.
traded a superstar to get a superstar. That's rigged. San Antonio has now had 3 years in a row where they have drafted in the top 4, 2 of which were top 3. Rigged. They got Wemby. They got Castle.
Yeah.
Philly blatantly tanked and got investigated. And for all those people who were saying, oh, well, if you get investigated, you don't get rewarded.
Nope.
Sorry.
You got Roy.
You're an idiot.
Ace. Yep.
Because why? Because Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers are in a better position and in a higher market than Brooklyn is. That is facts. Philadelphia is a more historic franchise in a better position than Brooklyn is currently. So if you don't think the lottery is rigged at this point in time, you are either blind, delusional, or an idiot. And there's no in between. This is disgusting.
No, the NBA has been trying to make Philly good for a decade now. It hasn't worked.
Last night's lottery was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen, simply because you're giving nobody a chance. There's no chance. It is statistically...
They pick the winners and losers, and that's what we're dealing with at this point. The only thing that we can now hope for is Joker goes in the second round and we get him, right? Like some crazy thing.
The Hawks had a 3% chance last year of landing number 1. The Mavericks had a 1.4% chance this year. It is statistically impossible for 2 teams below 3% in back-to-back years to go number 1. That's statistically impossible. That is a 4.4% chance out of maybe 100 million. Statistically impossible. If you don't think it's rigged at this point, you're crazy. And we can bitch and complain about it all we want. I'm going to. But you have teams like Chicago who have been stuck in the mud, dead in the middle, ethically tanking for 3 years, with stars, without stars, and they haven't gotten rewarded. Portland, one of the most fun young teams to watch this year, with a potential all-star on the rise in Denny Avila. They have Donovan Clingan, who they drafted last year. They have Scoot Henderson, who they got top 3 not too long ago. They still have Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Toumani Camara. They have all these young players and fun and exciting teams. They get fucked out of a top 3 spot. They're more deserving than anybody in the top 3 this year. Brooklyn, they just got rid of KD, Kyrie, Harden, Ben Simmons, everybody. They got rid of every star they've ever moved on for in the last 5 years. They added their draft capital. They got a haul for Mikal Bridges. They have the marketability to be able to present a top 3 pick and sell tickets and sell jerseys and make the NBA money. They still got fucked. Like, if this isn't rigged at this point, Toronto is in prime position to be one of the league's most fun and young, exciting teams, with Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl. They can't even get an opportunity at it. Like, it's disgusting to see what's going on in the NBA. There's no other American sports league that does shit like this. It's pure disgrace. It's disgusting, and I've been saying it for at least 4 years now. The NBA lottery needs to go. It needs to specifically be in order of certain projected picks. You want to do top 4 picks in one single lottery? Feel free. But leave 5 through 14 in their own separate realm, because there's no reason in back-to-back years that picks 10, 9, or 11 should be bumping up to number 1 in back-to-back years. It's a disgrace to the game. It's disgusting.
It's heartbreaking, Skull. It's. I mean, I know Skull is a Mets fan, Jets fan, and Nets fan, so he suffers with me year-round. This is, the Nets are obviously, of the 3, my favorite team by a mile, right? And this is just heartbreaking. I feel like there's no end in sight, right? This is like a terminal diagnosis where it's not going to get better.
This, as of right now, depending on how the offseason goes for Brooklyn, just push their rebuild back 2 years, right? Like, if you were thinking it from an ethical standpoint and a smart standpoint, this pushes Brooklyn's rebuild back 2 years and they would actually go through with it. But instead, you have Sean Marks, Joe Tsai in a Brooklyn market that likely will not allow that. So you're now in a position where you're most likely going to strike out on Giannis. You don't have the package. Like, I don't care what anybody says, what delusion you have. I don't give a fuck if Giannis himself says he wants to be here. But you're looking at now 3 teams, really 4 teams, who have packages far better than anything Brooklyn can offer, whether it's players or picks. Can you name me what the picks are that are valuable in Brooklyn currently, as of this moment in time? What are the
Our
valuable
pick,
picks?
our
Pick,
lottery pick next year,
right?
yeah.
And what happens? What happens if you trade our picks for Giannis? Those picks become not valuable, right? They become
Right,
15 through 30.
right.
What do we have to offer? New Orleans has Milwaukee's picks back. Houston has Phoenix's picks. San Antonio has Atlanta's picks and 2 lottery picks this year. Dallas has the number 1 pick. Like, there's no world where Brooklyn goes for Giannis. So let's throw that out the window. I already said it today on Instagram Live, too, because I had to update my people over there. I'm not posting Giannis news anymore. I'm not talking about Giannis anymore until there is a clear evidential sign that shows that he has any form of interest in Brooklyn and that there's any real opportunity of him coming to Brooklyn. He's not coming because there's no real chance of him actually being here. So plan A is out the door. Brian Lewis, you were wrong. Now you're going to plan B, which was the draft, right? Because somehow trading a premium for your picks was plan B. You got fucked in the lottery. What's your plan C? Right? Where do you go from here? Because now let's go into the number 8 overall pick, right? This is where it gets very difficult to see what the range of players.
When do you want to do the mock draft? When are you available to do our first mock draft that we know the order?
Let's do it Friday.
We do Friday? Yeah, we can do
Let's
Friday.
do Friday.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, now you have to get into the picks though, right? Let's just say the lottery stays as is. There's no trades. Dallas takes Flag, Harper goes to San Antonio. I'm still the person that's going to say VJ goes to Philly, but for this instance, let's just say it is Ace, right? Charlotte at 4, they go VJ. Utah at 5, they go Trey Johnson. Washington's at 6. That's the biggest threat right now to Jeremiah Fears at 6, right? They could
I
go
can't see him
Fears.
going beyond
They
that.
could go
Fears at
Malawak,
6.
right? They could go
Yeah.
Fears. They could go Malawak. They could go Queen. It really depends on what they feel. But see, the problem is, does Fears make sense? They have Jordan Poole. They have Bub Carrington. They have 2 really solid guards to build around, right? Is it the dual threat big man that they want to go with, that the NBA is trying to build a system around, right? It used to be small ball, now it's the dual threat big man. Do they go for the guy like Derek Queen, who has more offensive upside than Alex Sarr? Do they go for Kaman Malawak, who has more defensive upside than Alex Sarr, right? They could pair either of those 2 next to him and form a very enjoyable, exciting, threatening dual threat big man system, right? So to me, it's got to be big man. What do you think?
For Washington.
For Washington, at 6.
Washington is a worse run organization than we are, so it's hard to tell how they're going to blunder this, right?
I think it would be Malawak.
You know, if Washington draft Malawak, he's going to bust.
I know.
If a good franchise takes him, he's going to be a home run. To me, he's a question mark, but I don't think his floor is that low. I just don't like. I don't see him being a bad basketball player. I see him being a good.
I see him being Mark Williams.
Okay, and that's a good.
And that's the floor.
Yeah,
like Mark Williams, if healthy, genuinely does have the opportunity of being an all-star big if he was developed properly and could stay healthy. Injury history has shown he can't. But if you remember this past season, he had like a 3-4 week stretch where he was averaging almost 20 and 15. Like, he has skill. He has dominance, but he just can't stay healthy, right? Malawak is different. He's generally healthy, but it's his conditioning that could become an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
We really haven't seen him play a high sample size of minutes per game. He was in a very limited role, playing around 20 to 25 minutes a night while at Duke. Mitchell Robinson isn't a horrible example, but again, the floor space of Malawak is far more superior than anything Mitchell Robinson has ever had. And you also have to remember, Malawak 7'2", 253 pounds, coming into the NBA at 18 years old. I think the upside on him and the floor on him is way further than a Mitchell Robinson. And, to me, his floor is Mark Williams. His ceiling could be something as special as Hakeem Olajuwon. That's just me personally. Like, that's how high up that this kid has the potential to be in this league. He started playing basketball 2.5 years ago.
Similar to Hakeem. I'm not making a Hakeem comparison. I'm saying Hakeem didn't start playing basketball.
It's scary to look at.
Yeah,
it's scary to think about. Joel Embiid started playing basketball at 14. Look what Embiid's been able to do throughout his careers outside of injury, right? If that's what a 14-year-old starts off as and turns into, what does the 16-year-old turn into, right? It's an interesting topic. But to me, again, I'm just going based on a quick lottery draft that I could see. You got Flag at 1, Harper at 2, Ace at 3, VJ at 4. You have Trey Johnson at 5. Let's just say for this sake, we're going Malawak at 6 to Washington. That leaves Derek Queen or Con Kneppel at 7 to New Orleans. And for this instance, let's say it's Derek Queen. Like, there is a world where one of those 3 players lands in Brooklyn, right? The problem is, if it comes down to Con Kneppel and Jeremiah Fears at 8, is Sean Marks stupid enough to take Con Kneppel over Jeremiah Fears?
100%.
At this point, I believe it.
He's taking guys. I will as long as someone else doesn't do something wild and take him before us. If Kneppel is at 8, he's a net. I will get. He's Cam Johnson 2.0, who Marks loves. He's a net.
I'm almost hoping Houston trades up with New Orleans at 7 to take Con Kneppel from us. Because if it's in the hands of Sean Marks to select Con Kneppel or Jeremiah Fears, he's the type of idiot that'll take Con Kneppel 9 out of 10 times because Sean Marks doesn't deserve to have a job in a G League farm system, let alone an NBA team. He's just horrible at what he does.
If he did that, if he took Kneppel and left Fears on the board, I'm liable to go do something wild.
My Instagram page goes up for sale. My Instagram page goes up for sale. I'm not even kidding. Like, I can't do it. I'm not wasting another 365 days posting for shit for a team that has no sort of respect nor understanding of what the fan base wants, needs, and deserves. It's not happening. But yeah, I mean, that's the position that Brooklyn could be put in realistically, with San Antonio being out of the number 8 or 9 spot like they were originally projected. Now you have to think Con Kneppel falls, especially if he goes past Brooklyn at 8, right? Toronto, Phoenix, Portland at 9, 10, and 11 makes a ton of sense for him. So I personally have him going likely to Houston. But that's just my personal prediction. So let's see. As of right now, we have Flag at 1, Harper at 2, Ace at 3, VJ at 4, Trey Johnson at 5, Maluak at 6, Derek Queen at 7, Fears at 8. I'm going to say Colin Murray Boyles at 9. No, not Boyles.
If it was Boyles or Kneppel, who would you take?
Kneppel. I don't even want to have the debate because I don't even want to. It's like fighting Hitler versus Stalin. It's both horrible. Like, it's not. There's nothing good about it, but it's just that's how that would play out.
That's how it's.
Yeah.
Gonna...
At 9
and
for
Jokic
Toronto,
Jonas, he's
that's what I was about to just say. 9 for Toronto, I'd probably go Jokic Jonas, and then 10 for Houston, I'd go Kneppel. Portland at 11, I'd probably go with Colin Murray Boyles. Chicago at 12, call me crazy, he's shooting up draft boards. Unfortunately, Thomas Sorber at 12 to Chicago, I think, could be in play. Atlanta at 13, I would assume Noah Sengwe or Jace Richardson, and vice versa for San Antonio at 14, one of Jace Richardson or Noah Sengwe. So that's how I see the lottery playing out personally right now.
Go ahead, LBL. I know you got some thoughts.
Hey, I'm still trying to recover from this.
I got to put this comment up. Sorry. This is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's unconsensual too.
Yeah.
That is just that's what that
lube.
feels like. That is horrible. Yeah, that is
Ice Cube, no
asleep.
Vaseline.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think I flashed on a little bit of Breezy's thing yesterday with him and Jay, and I just find it amazing how people are spinning it and saying, "See, we told you, so we didn't need the tank." And I'm like,
thank you for bringing this up.
All 3 of those teams that were at the bottom, they all have better picks than us.
Yep. That's the thing that people really do not seem to understand is the floor of the pick is important. This is why I said I would have rather have been the worst team in basketball and got pick 5 rather than be sixth worst with a floor of 9.
I remember we did the mathematics and it said that, those bottom 4, especially the bottom 3, they said the bottom 3 that they had a better than 50% chance to finish no worse than 4th, right?
Yep. Well, so how it works is the number 1 pick can't go lower than 5. That's why Washington got 5. The number 2 pick can't go lower than 6. The number 3 pick can't go lower than 7. The number 4 pick can't go lower than 8. 5 and 6 can't go lower than 9. And then it works from there. So Brooklyn's median, right? That was like the lowest they could go was
10.
9.
It was technically
10?
It is 0.2% chance of getting 10.
Oh, okay. All right. So the lowest was 10.
It actually, Dallas, I guess, is but look, the teams that got the top 2 picks both had better records than us. And I understand Dylan's point about the floor of the pick.
fourth
And
pick is very important.
would it be better to have pick 5 or 6 than 8? I mean, I don't even have to answer that question. Obviously, 5 or 6 is better.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
the
but
true
my
difference
point
is
was
7
that
could be the difference between Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen.
And it'll
Like,
be
that's what that
even
difference could be.
and it'll be even more important this coming year.
Yep.
Because those top 4 or 5 guys
but
this coming
you're
year.
still you're tanking to try to win a rigged system. To me, it's still a bit of a fool's errand. You're not going to win something that's fixed. I understand the argument that 5 or 6 is still better than 8, and I agree with it. And that's why this is a difficult. It's not as if you finish with the worst record in basketball, the NBA is then going to say you get number 1. No, you get number 5.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give 1, 2, and 3 to good teams. So you finish with the worst record, you'll go 5. So if we tank next year and we finish with the worst record, you guys prepared to be happy with the 5th pick in the draft?
Yes.
Okay.
I would take 5 over 8 any day of the week.
I
don't care. I don't care what the ceiling of the pick is. Would I be angry? Of course, but at the end of the day, if you're comparing this year's draft, next year's draft, we're the worst team in basketball next year and we land 5 compared to being this year where we tried to fight for a plan for 3/4 of a season and landed 8. Yeah, I'm going to be much happier next year. I'm going to be pissed off that we lost the chance of drafting top 3. But again, 5th pick versus 8th pick, I'm taking 5 over 8, right? 5 solidifies your potential of getting Fears. 5 solidifies your option of potentially getting a guy like VJ Edgecombe or Kaman Maluak.
Yeah.
8, you're now in
possibility. This year, it worked out that there were exactly 5 guys in the draft who are really good. You know what I'm saying?
Not to mention, too, if you look at the way that this year went, is there a debate to be had where if Brooklyn loses those 2 games to Philly, loses those 3 games to Milwaukee, that right there is the difference maker in Philly and Brooklyn's record right there. Does Brooklyn move up to 5?
They didn't give the pick to the 5th worst team. They gave it to the
Philly. Sixers. Yep.
Right. It didn't.
And that's what I'm saying, though.
The pick was going to go to Philly regardless of where. You know what I'm saying? The Nets would have picked 5th.
Yeah.
I guess
the problem also is that the
7th.
6th overall odds are statistically the worst odds within the top 10. Statistically the worst. It has no chance of going to 5. It has a minimal chance of going into the top 4, and it has a more than likely chance of going 6 through 9. And this is the 7th straight year where this has gone below 6.
But this is what I'm saying. The only reason to have a system like this is to rig it. Like no reasonable person would say, "Hey, I have an idea. This is going to make sense. This is how we're going to determine the lottery." It makes no sense. This is ridiculous.
I agree with you. I mean that it is done for that reason, but it's just sort of like there's nothing we can do about it at this point. But I'm saying, but we do have the power to be amongst the worst teams. And I'm saying, for as much as those people were jumping up and down about Jordy and they're jumping up and down about us winning some games, that was some horrible basketball we watched. And it was just ugly. And I'm saying, like, even if, like whoever we get at 8, if it's Queen or if it's whoever else, and they even end up having a decent rookie season, I'd rather be with them losing and hope that I can get at minimum the 5th pick next year than to trade all of that for.
Let me put this out here, and I'll let you both respond to this. The odds of us picking 1, which is the ultimate prize, I think would be better if we go out, win 35 games next year, get in the play-in, and show the NBA that we're doing something than it is to just lose all of our games. So if the NBA is looking at us in one of 2 ways, here's a team that's trying to compete, they're trying to win, they're getting better, or here's a team that is intensely trying to lose and they won 15 games and they're the worst team in basketball. Which one are we going to give the number 1 pick to? I would say we have a better chance of the NBA giving us the number 1 pick if we went out and competed, because they did it with Atlanta and they did it with Dallas and San Antonio.
So here's where Brooklyn can fix the problem in which they just faced, right? If Fears is available at 8, you take him and run, right? Let's just put it 100%. That way. This now puts you in a position where you're looking at San Antonio at 14, Oklahoma City at 15, Orlando at 16. Those are really the 3 main teams inside those early teens picks or those middle teen picks that I see being potential trade partners. For this instance, I'm going OKC. I still think this is the team that goes after Cam Johnson, because if they're not serious about Giannis, which I don't know why they wouldn't be, they have the package and the picks to get it done. But if they aren't, look at how this series is going against Denver. I believe it was game 2 where Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams, the center, all these young players that they have coming off the bench, they combined for like 7 total points on horrible efficiency, and they lost that game, right? So if you're looking at the young rotational pieces there's clearly a difference maker in having veteran players who can win you playoff games and having young role players who are still underdeveloped to win championships. You cannot waste the potential and the opportunities of SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet. You just can't if you're OKC. So to me, OKC is the team, whether they make the finals or not, to move in on a guy like Cam Johnson. To me, that offer looks like Cam Johnson for Kenrich Williams, Ousmane Dieng, the 15th overall pick, and the Indiana Pacers 2026 first-round pick. It's top 4 protected. They can add a top 10 protection if they really want to on it, but regardless, the Pacers look like a team that's going to be in between 22 through 30 for the next 3 years based on how they're playing. So
they may win a championship this year. I'm being serious. The Indiana Pacers
I think
may
it's
win a
Minnesota
championship this year.
I think it's Minnesota.
Can you imagine if the finals is Minnesota and the Knicks?
Minnesota and Indiana.
Wild.
Oh, the Knicks. Oh, I was saying Minnesota and Indiana.
Did you guys
that would get 0 ratings, by the way. The NBA would
Yeah.
hate that. It could happen. Like the East right now. The Knicks,
you know what? I hope it does happen. So that
I'm
it's a
not
big
writing the
fuck you
Cavs
to
out and
Adam
the
Silver.
Pacers.
I'm hoping it happens because it'll be a big fuck you to Adam Silver and really show that small market teams can make it. Build up your small market teams.
Did you see the draft capital recently for the Spurs?
It's disgusting.
No,
They
I mean,
got
don't
multiple
they have,
Atlanta
don't
picks.
They
They
have,
got
don't they have a switch with Atlanta?
Atlanta.
They have Atlanta's number 1 pick in 27, I think.
Yes, they have. I'll pull it up for you right now to be more accurate. But they do have 2 more Atlanta Hawks picks. I do know that. I believe it is back-to-back years. Let's see. The Spurs have, if it ever decides to load.
Is there anything the Nets can do next year to get in the good graces of the NBA and get a top 5 pick?
I don't believe.
Tell Adam Silver he's Jesus. I don't know. Do something. I don't care.
I don't believe in that, Gary. I just think you just have to bottom out. To me,
but if that doesn't work,
wow.
If that would have worked, Washington would have got the number 1 pick. Bottoming them out.
The Spurs are set, man. They have pick 2 and 14 this year. They have the Atlanta swap rights next year. They have Atlanta's unprotected 2027 first-round pick. And they also have Boston swap rights in 2028 first-round pick. And if you know what's going on in Boston, you know what's going on. I put this out yesterday. Tatum likely tore his Achilles.
And so what I'm looking
– we got an update on that? Did we get an update on Tatum yet?
I don't have an official update on him, but if you see the video, if you see how he reacts, it is 99.9% chance of torn Achilles.
That was my first instinct when he went down, and
think about it this way. This is a team who is in financial ruins because of how much they put into this team over the last 2 years. They are 50+ million over the second apron. They are going to be penalized for the next 2 years because of that. And because of that, you now have to think they're blowing it up, right? Porzingis, Drew Holiday, they're gone. I don't know what's going on with Porzingis, if it's a mystery illness, if it's HIV. I don't know what it is, because the way that he's acting is like, it's kind of similar to Magic Johnson, if you ask me. There's some weird shit going on with him and this whole so-called mystery illness that he has. But realistically,
you're not supposed to kiss the strippers, Porzingis. You're not supposed to kiss the strippers.
You are not supposed to touch. You're just supposed to look. Yeah, no, it's realistically, if they could potentially move off of Jaylen Brown this year. He's making 60+ million.
But see, I want to get back to the Spurs in that since they don't really need a point guard, since like it seems like.
Oh, I'm more so just talking in general for Boston.
I'm saying the number 2 pick, and like and some of that draft capital from Atlanta. I think that would do it for Giannis.
Giannis to the Spurs right now, you can mark it, set it, whatever you want to do. Giannis is a Spur until further notice. Giannis is a Spur until further notice. They have 2 top 14 picks. They have 2 incredibly valuable Atlanta picks. They now own a swap right in 2028 with Boston, which is, I'm just going to say, is extremely valuable as of right now, because if they do move on for Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Brown, if Tatum is out for the season next year, which is what I was going to mention. If Tatum's out for the season next year and they blow up the team, they're getting a top 3 pick. It doesn't matter if they're 10th seed or if they're 15th seed. They're getting a top 3 pick because the NBA is rigged. But they'll probably get Demansky because he's from Boston.
I see the Spurs doing that. I mean,
the Spurs even have the Dallas-Minnesota swap rights in 2030. That's an incredibly valuable pick. They have Sacramento swap rights in 2031.
I don't see a better offer. I don't see a better offer for Giannis other
Not
than
one.
than Harper and all those picks, because you're getting a star. Then they can actually supplement with some of those other Spurs guys that add up to Giannis's salary. But I'm saying, they don't care if they come away. If the Spurs come away from it with Wemby, Castle, and Fox and Giannis, then they're good.
I completely agree.
So they're saying that they have a better package than the Brooklyn Nets, who can give you Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton.
Well, I mean, to Sean Marks, Cam Johnson's probably worth more than Giannis, but whatever.
If you like one Cam Johnson, wait till we get Con Knipple and have two Cam Johnsons.
Jesus Christ!
Is there any way that Dallas would go after Giannis?
There's already talks about it. It actually just got posted today.
They're not going to trade Cooper Flagg, I don't think.
But that's the coach that
if they were smart, they'd trade Anthony Davis.
Yeah, but if given a choice between Anthony Davis and Dylan Harper for a rebuild, you're going to take Dylan Harper on the rest of that haul, right? Because Anthony Davis is 31 years old already. He doesn't really.
Well, he's practically the same age as Giannis. Yeah, there's a year and a half difference.
But don't discount that. Kidd was the first guy that Giannis really started to break out under. Remember? When he was the Milwaukee coach?
I would Dallas. Okay.
Well, Scoop just said it. He said that Giannis and Kidd have a mutual interest in trying to be together once again. That's one. Two, Dallas has had interest. They just posted it on Legion Hoops just a couple of hours ago. Dallas has had interest in Giannis for a couple of years now. They wanted to try and figure out a way to pair him with Luka. They weren't able to. They now have the number one pick. They still have AD under contract. They still have a ton of players under contract. They could be a sleeper team for him. And what would hurt worse more
if
than
I were the Bucks? I would still do the. I would still do the
Spurs trade.
I would do the Spurs trade for sure.
If you're telling me that I can get the second overall pick, 4 incredibly valuable first-round picks, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, and Stephon Castle, give me that. Like they don't even need the second overall pick. Give me Stephon Castle.
Last night we went on Scott's live, and Leaf said he doesn't think any of those top 3 guys are gonna be with the teams that they're with right now, like what they're projected to be with right now.
I think Ace will be.
He said even the 76ers might trade their pick.
So that's actually interesting that you brought it up. And real quickly before I get into it, just because I wanted to finish up what I thought the best scenario is for Brooklyn. Let's just say there's a world where you do that trade with OKC that I mentioned, right? It's Ousmane Dieng, Kenrich Williams, Cam, and pick 15 plus that Indiana 2026 for Cam Johnson. And let's just say the Nets throw in a future protected first. Who cares? Or maybe multiple seconds. That puts you in a position to where you can now go after a guy like Rasheer Fleming or Carter Bryant. If you can walk away with one of if you can walk away with Jeremiah Fears and one of Rasheer Fleming, Carter Bryant, or Thomas Sorber, at this point in time, that's a win for Brooklyn, because that's how bad of a position that we're in.
They're gonna walk away with Knipple and Wolf. That's what we're doing. That's what we're walking away with.
What are they trying to do? Build the 1970s Celtics? What the fuck are we doing here? I am a Caucasian male. I mean, I am like whiter than white. I am pale. I go outside. It's raining right now. I'll probably get a sunburn. Like, I don't even want to see that. I want to see a great team. I don't want to see a bunch of potential
if you want to see
what
team,
are we doing?
You picked the wrong team because we got Sean Marks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't want to see a team that looks like a bunch of accountants. It's just no, I don't. That doesn't work for me. Give me the guy that has like off-court issues but also has like a 40-inch vertical. Like give me somebody cool. Give me somebody that I could cheer for. Somebody that's going to give me 25 and jump out of the roof. Like, I need something. I don't want Con Knipple and Danny Walker.
I was just watching the documentary on Crittenton and Gilbert Arenas. Shooting guards. It was really good. Yeah. It was real. I forgot like a lot of the details in that.
So real quickly here, let me just finish off this point, right? Because let's do hypothetical. Fears at 8. I'm gonna say go. I think Thomas Sorber's in the lottery now, but go Carter Bryant at 15 with OKC, right? Go Will Riley at 19, and if you have to trade I would be okay with those 3 straight up, and you trade the later firsts for package those two first for an unprotected future first. right? I'm okay with that. If you can walk away with those 3 guys, it's a solid foundation. It leaves you a ton of room to take on bad contracts through trade. It also gives you an opportunity to trade Claxton and rebuild the team.
The only thing I would say is I've seen Will Riley. I like Renault better than Riley.
Maxime Reynaud?
Yeah.
This is the center. Well, Will Riley's a wing. Will Riley's about 6'8.5", Illinois wing.
Yeah, I know. I know that. I like Carter Bryant more than I do Will Riley. But I'm saying
I agree. The
Carter
upside
Bryant.
on Bryant, dude. Did you see Bryant at the combine today? That dude looks
No.
like he's fucking 25. He's built like a 25-year-old prime player.
Oh
and,
yeah,
and
that's
even
what
in the
I'm
face,
saying.
he looks older.
He is freaking strong and beefy. You know, it's like wow.
Pause, but yeah, no, you're right. Listen, he's 6'8", 225 at 18 years old. That doesn't come around very often. He has an NBA-ready build. He has incredible defensive tangibles. His offensive game has a bit of unlocking to do, but that can be done under Jordy. So to me, Carter Bryant is the clear and obvious player that you want to shoot for, whether that is through trade or at number 19. But to me, if you can land those 3 guys, right?
Yeah,
Hell, even if Fleming
Thorne and
falls
I
to
were
19, I'm taking him.
Pod Thorne and I were going back and forth because he was saying, "What? He looks like the guy on High School Musical or something." You know.
Oh my God, no.
I got it, guys.
Play. I said he could
Dylan,
play.
Yeah, what's up?
I gotta drop off. You can end this when you guys. I don't want to cut you guys off.
Yeah, I gotta run too. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we'll end it here. We'll be back Friday. Yeah, let's do Friday for a mock draft. We'll do a full
11:30?
first round mock. 11:30 works. Yeah.
Friday,
All right,
11:30.
guys.
The first. Appreciate you, LB. Thanks for dropping by.
Appreciate you for joining, brother. Have a good one.
All right.
First post lottery mock draft of the year. Depressing, but we'll get to it on Friday. So, you want to take us out, Gary? I can't take away from Texas to the world, man. Come on, you're always the closeout guy.
All right, it's May 13th. We'll be back Friday at 11:30 Eastern time. It is May 15th. No, it's not May 15th. It's May 13th, 2025. Yeah. From Texas to the world. Thank y'all, and God bless.
Later.
So long.